Today we have some bestie content coming for you, navigating conflicts, coming out on the other side stronger and better. Yeah, so we just went through a tough season.
It was the worst.
It was probably a good 2 months.
It was so long.
Yeah, it was way too long, honestly.
Way longer than I ever even imagined.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this will be over in like a couple days.
Yeah.
That's how it's always been for us.
Yeah. It's not that we had never navigated conflict before. It's just that when we navigated conflict, it's like an hour-long conversation and we're moving on and we're good.
Period.
But what happens when what seemed like it was going to be just one situation turns into a whole season?
Ugh.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Avrielle Pittman and I talk about faith, confidence, and lifestyle from a Christian woman's perspective.
Okay, girl, you're giving a Hercules, please.
No.
Girl, I have no idea what
All right.
Should we let them know we moved?
Yeah. So guys, the sun was moving and it was a whole situation. I think y'all could tell it was bright. We looked like we had the glory of God on us, which is true, but it was also just the sunlight. So we moved and we're in a shaded place, but we will resume our conversation.
Period.
Yeah, I think it just kind of boiled down to Abe was in a low season when I was hitting burnout, and we both wanted more from one another, and we didn't have it to give.
Yeah.
And that was really hard.
Yeah. And I had never envisioned a scenario where that would happen because anytime you had been having a low season, I'd been up, and I could pour into you. Anytime I'm having a low season, you've been up and you can pour into me. So it was just really different. And I think it really taught me patience.
Same.
Like,
For real.
patience.
Yeah.
Being willing
Yeah.
to go through it and have multiple conversations over a long period of time and not just throw in the towel and like say the friendship is a wash because it's been so long. I think a lot of people grow weary. And you and I, like, even though I'm sure we had weary moments, like we didn't just throw in the towel with our friendship because of the period of time. Like 2 months is a long time, to be going through it with a friend. And when we say going through it, it really wasn't even like we're arguing, it was just we weren't on the same page, and it was obvious that we weren't on the same page. And like we'd have conversations, we kind of make some headway, and then like there would still be more to cover. You know what I mean? So it was just like, I think I'm so appreciative of you because you taught me in that season that you can still communicate. I think in high school when I had traumatic friendships, when we were having conflict, we just wouldn't talk. Or we wouldn't express ourselves. And that is a lot of my friendship trauma where it's like, oh, if we're not good, then we're not talking. But you taught me, no, like I'm still checking in. How are you doing? And that was different for me. And it really taught me that you could still even show up for a friend when you guys aren't 100%. You guys can still show your love. You guys can still check in with each other. And that was something you taught me because I'm not that good at that, So I'm appreciative of you for that. And I feel like going into, which we will, have conflict again, that's something that I know, like, oh, this is something that I could do better for next time.
I think that's a big one. Definitely like remaining in communication, like doing what you can.
Yeah.
It really felt like maintenance.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're at a level of maintenance to where we're still in relationship. We're still communicating. There's still love communicated.
Yeah.
Even if it don't feel like us,
Yeah.
like this is who we are, like, because we're very all-in kind of people.
Yes.
And I think that that's what hurt. Some of you might be listening and thinking like, oh, big deal. Y'all are both going through hard seasons at the same time. And what, you can't call each other every single day, like get over it or whatever. I think it's because both Abe and I are very like all-in kind of people. Yeah. When you have tasted the goodness of really incredible friendship, it's harder when you're not getting that quality.
Yes.
It's hard because you know how good it can be.
Right.
And so when you're not at that level, it can actually kind of be a little bit heartbreaking. Like, oh, why aren't we at where we normally are, And it really was that. It wasn't like, oh, they're not sharing all of the details. There's more to this. No, it really was that. She was low, I was low, and we couldn't all the way show up for one another. And we both needed it, but there was so much good that came from it.
Yeah.
I was just talking to Abe and I was saying, I feel a deepened level of trust with you because you can trust what has been tested.
Yeah.
And we have had already been tested before with different types of conflicts. and navigated them well because there's a really fast turnaround. But this was the first time we had navigated conflict that took an extended period of time, a seasonal conflict as opposed to a situational conflict. And what it did was prove to me several things. When we're going through it, you're not about to talk to other people about me. Like, you're not going to make me look bad to other people. You're going to continue to show honor and love, which for me is a really high priority. I always want to feel like I'm safe and that my reputation isn't going to be tarnished based on a personal thing that we're walking through, right? So that's like one thing that I have a greater trust and greater assurance of. Another thing is that you will consistently be kind, be loving, be gentle, even when you're deeply hurt. Because, you know, people will say things like, oh, when you're really upset or when you're really mad or you're in the heat of the moment, that's when the truth really comes out, right? But at our lowest relationally, love still came out.
Yeah.
I think that there was communicated disappointment because it's like, oh, I'm disappointed because we're not where we should be.
Yeah.
I think we both communicated that, which is understandable, right? But like, you still communicated love. You're still gentle, you're still kind. And I think that that speaks volumes because you never really truly know someone's true colors until you see them at their lowest. And it's like, man, when someone's at their lowest and there's still love and kindness and gentleness and understanding coming out, it's just like proven character, proven love. And that's not devoid of feelings, right? I think that like we think, oh, you have to feel love in order to give love. No, I'm sure that there are moments of like feeling offended or feeling misunderstood or feeling lonely, feeling sad, and yet loving. It was just like, wow, this, first of all, is how love is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And second of all, this is what God's love is like towards us. It was very humbling for me because I just think about how much I be offending God, how much I hurt God, how much I break his heart, how much I have nothing I really can give to him that's enough, right? And yet he loves me deeply. So I'll pause there because I can just keep talking. But those are like some of the big things that I learned that actually deepened my trust in the relationship. Hard times can either create a bigger break in trust or deepen the trust, and it actually deepened my trust.
That's so good. I have to agree. One of my friendship traumas is that people don't believe the best about me. So like even when we're going through hard times, I have this fear that, oh my gosh, is this person going to believe the best? Is this person going to think this about me? Is this person going to think this about me? And like something that I really wanted you to know, which I don't think maybe I did the best job at always expressing during our conflict, was like, I want you to know I'm still Ave. You know, like I want her to know that I'm still me. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to dishonor her. You know, like I want her to know that because that was a fear of mine. It really strengthened that for me because, or weakened that belief actually, weakened that false belief for me that would be something that we'd be attacked by because I just felt like we're so consistent in showing up when it came to like, hey, how are you doing? Checking in. It just made me feel like, oh, she still loves me. Oh, she's still here. Oh, she's still present. She still cares. And that did so much for me, you know? So there's this time where you like voice noted me. I think you initiated the voice note. Do you remember? And you were just saying like, I love you. Like I care about you. I've just been thinking about you. You know, I don't remember. You're just saying
an incredible
you've been
friend
such an incredible
Yeah.
friend. Yeah, you were just saying the most sweetest, most loving things, and it just set my heart on fire to know that you were thinking that way about me during conflict, you know? And also something that encouraged me as well was that like when I would check in or we were just having a passing conversation, you had like mentioned one time, you were like, I've just been like praying to God, you know, like praying about us. And that made me feel so good because I'm like, oh, okay, like she's going to the source. We're good, you know, because I was doing the same. I was praying. I prayed about us so much. I felt like God was probably like, girl, shut up. I heard you. I heard you the first 300 times, you know.
Funny.
But literally, like, it was so sweet to know that you were doing the same thing. And that encouraged me. Because I was like, oh, if she's going to the source, then we're okay.
Yeah.
You know, like, God's not going to say nothing crazy, you know? And that really was encouraging for me too. Like, I just feel like you did so many things in the midst of us experiencing conflict that made me feel like, no, she's not believing the wrong thing about you. She still sees you as Ave. And that was really beautiful for me.
I felt the same way, because it's nice knowing that you're praying about it, because one thing that I know about myself and God is that God will always check me, and he'll get me together if I'm off.
Right.
And one thing that I've learned about being in close relationship with Abe is that if God checks her, she will respond. And so, like, you going to God about the relationship and me going to God about the relationship made me feel at rest, because we were both putting it in God's hands, as opposed to try and manipulate a situation to make it work. I think that when you're able to say, God, what do you want me to do with this? I don't know what to do. How do you want me to respond? How do you want me to navigate this? Like, it's when you put that in God's hands that he can really handle it, you know? And that was nice, because like we ended up having a conversation, and I was like, I was praying to God, this is what God was sharing with me. And she was like, I was praying to God, this is what God was sharing with me. And I was like, that's Rhema from heaven. That's so good. Oh my gosh. Like, give me those scriptures, you know? The grass will be green where you water it. Right? It's so much more. No, I don't have to fear that a relationship won't last. I don't have to fear that it's going to go to crap if I know that we're both working towards it and we're both praying for it. I would say that there are certainly times where the enemy planted seeds, and like you and I had to navigate through that. For me, one of the seeds that was planted early on, because Abe was going through what I perceived to be so much more of harder circumstances in her season, and there's so many sensitivities that she carried around that season. So for me, I love her so much that the last thing I want to do is hurt her. And her walking through a very sensitive season, there were times where I unintentionally hurt her, feel regret around unintentionally hurting her, and then feeling fear about what if I unintentionally hurt her more. And so the seed that was planted in my heart from the enemy was, Abe's feelings matter, yours don't. And while I'm a confrontation girly, I'm not afraid of confrontation, especially when it's done in a healthy way. In this season, because that seed was planted, I believed that if I fully expressed my feelings, and that if I continued to express some things that were happening on my end, that it would hurt Ave more. And she already has so much on her plate. She's already in pain. And I just can't afford to do that. So it caused me to actually pull back and kind of keep things at maintenance level out of fear of hurting her. And so what happened was I wasn't fully expressed. And so I felt as if there were a lot of needs that weren't being met on my end, which she wasn't all the way aware of. And then it also felt like for her, like she wasn't getting the full me. But it came from a place of fear of hurting her, and also feeling like my feelings don't take priority. Her feelings take priority in this season, in a season where we're both going through. It's like, which one's worse? Hers is clearly worse. So like, let me be so mindful of her feelings and let me not make things worse. But I mean, we ended up talking about that, and you actually preferred the opposite. You preferred for me to just be more raw and real, which I didn't know, because there were many times I hurt you unknowingly, and so I just didn't know what I could and couldn't say, could and couldn't do, you know? So that was something to definitely navigate through. What about for you?
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I think it's important for like other people to know that have close relationships, that even though you may be praying, even though you guys are like really trying to do the right thing by each other spiritually, the enemy will still try. Like, he's still gonna try.
And still have some level of success, because I believed it. So we just had to navigate through those beliefs.
Right.
But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, and I feel like for at least for me, the seed that was planted for me is you're not safe with Amanda. Because when you had come to me and told me like all that you were feeling, I was like, well, why didn't you tell me? And it made me like, it kind of like took me back to high school when there was all of these feelings that friends had, and it wasn't expressed up front, and it was like just this carried resentment. And not saying that you were resentful, I'm just saying like that's what it took me back to, where I was just like, dang, am I safe? Is she gonna feel some type of way and not tell me? And something that I'd always valued so much in our friendship is that if there's anything, immediately you're gonna know, immediately I'm gonna know, you know?
Because we'll just tell each other.
Because we'll just tell each other. And I think that knowing that, oh, she had been feeling this way, obviously with all the context of why you didn't share, I understand, you know? But it automatically, like, the enemy planted a seed in my heart, like, oh, you're not safe with Amanda. So, like, it caused me to, like, withdraw and not share 100% as well, you know? So I just see that it was just a plan of the enemy, you know, to get us to believe these lies so that there can be further distance and it pushes further and further away, you know? But then eventually the only way to dispel that was to share. The enemy will tell you a lie, and it's either we believe it, which we did, you know, but eventually we were like, okay, we have to, the only way to combat this lie is to go against it by actually acting against it, you know? And then it showed us that, no, I am safe, and no, I can fully express, you know? So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that timing matters a lot.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I would say because we were praying, God orchestrated the timing perfectly.
Yeah.
To where we can share at a good point when both of our hearts are at a good place.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where the patience piece comes in.
Yeah.
Because I think if we think it has to be right now, right away, in this moment, in normal circumstances, it can be that way. But in certain circumstances, you're going to have nuance and patience.
Yeah.
Love is patient. That's the first thing out of the list of things that the Bible said love is. The first thing is patience.
Yeah.
Love is patient. Are you willing to wait to see this come full circle? Or are you impatient and just thinking, hey, it's not worth my time. I'm going to just cut it off and keep it moving and heal in silence so that I can just keep my life going. It's not patient. I think this is where, like, we have to speak to the foundation that we built. Having a strong foundation matters so much with deeper, closer friendships, because if there were like multiple offenses and a lot of things had gone wrong, if there were things like betrayal, if there were things like 2 years ago, you didn't navigate this well, you really hurt me, and now something else is coming up and I'm kind of seeing something similar, that is completely different. Yeah. And that's something maybe you should consider withdrawing from. Maybe you should consider cutting off. But this was so unique because Abe and I had such a strong track record of trust, of safety, of love, of hearing from the Lord, praying together, believing the best together, strong communication skills. Like, we communicate really well during conflict. You share your feelings, I share my feelings. We validate one another. We apologize when we miss it. We do that all really well. And we had years of track record of that, and even track records of we get through conflict after an hour, you know, like, and so having such a strong foundation, I had a lot to lean on mentally when emotionally I felt hurt. Yeah. Mentally, I was standing on what I knew. It's kind of like that same muscle that I use when I feel bad within myself, but I'm standing on what I know of what God told me, right? God says that I'm this. God says that I'm God. God told me this. God told me that. I don't feel it. Yeah. I was using the same muscle with Ave because of the strong foundation that we built. You know, we say Christ is my firm foundation, and we can trust him, right? Because he has such a good track record with us. I built that with Ave. We had such a strong track record. Like, she was a firm foundation friendship for me. And so in a season where she didn't look like the same Ave that I knew, she didn't sound like the same Ave that I knew, she responded to things differently. In a situation like that, I still was like, I got a track record. Yeah. I got receipts. She handled this well. She handled that well. Even when, you know, she's navigating through this with a different person, here's how she honored. Here's how she honored here. You know, here's what I know about, like, what she can't stand. I know Abe's not passive aggressive because we've talked about a million times how we can't stand passive aggression. So even if I were to perceive that, I'm going to stand on what I know. Yeah. I know she's not passive aggressive. Because of that track record, I was able to stir myself up with what I knew about her. And so that foundation carried us through that season. I think that's why it's so important to build really strong and slow, in my opinion. This is just in my opinion.
I agree.
Strong and slow foundations with people, because that's built over time. Whereas if you go super deep really fast and they hurt you really bad, I mean, it's just like a microwave friendship and it's just here and gone. But it's like we had a slow burn. It went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's like, no, this is the deepest like female friendship I've ever had. And we have nothing but a strong track record.
Yeah.
Let me back up a little bit. One way that I was like, I need to talk to somebody about this, but I have to navigate it well to where A feels safe and honored. One person was my husband. She already knows I'm going to talk to my husband about it. Another person was our therapist. We have the same therapist.
Yeah.
I asked Ave before I even reached out to our therapist, would you be comfortable with that? And then third was another friend that I have. And before I even reached out to that friend, I said, Ave, I need someone to talk to about this. I need somebody to process this with. I don't got you in this moment. You know what I'm saying? But I love you.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with me talking to her? And she's not somebody who's in our immediate friend group in Texas. Because I feel like that creates a lack of safety, because then people can turn against you, choose sides. That is the worst possible thing, right? So I'm like, who's somebody I could go to who's not in our immediate friend group, who, you know, who loves the Lord, spirit-filled, loves us both, you know, who I could talk to about this. I'm still not going to go to her until I ask Ave. So I asked Ave about it, and I screenshotted to that girl, Ave is okay with this. And I screenshotted to Ave, you know, the conversation I had with her. So it's just like, we're on agreement. You know who I'm talking to. You know, this is not betrayal. This is not like I'm bad-mouthing you. And so in that, one of the things that she asked me when she was helping me process, she asked, well, who has Abe been to you like all of these years? Has it felt this way this entire time? Like, how has it been? I'm like, no, like Abe has been my very best friend. She's been able to show up for me. She's been strong. She's navigated conflict well. Like when we don't see eye to eye, like she navigates that well. Honestly, it's been really good. This is just really unique with the season. And I remember her saying, well, then it probably is just seasonal. It probably is more patience. In that, two really great things happened was I had such a strong track record. It does not elicit a need to cut it off, because it's like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
That's really stupid. It's just like our husbands are super close. Our kids are super close. Like our lives are so integrated. We love each other so much. So much of our purposes are overlapping. And in all of that, we have the strongest track record. And you just gonna get impatient in a hard season?
Come on.
You know? And it's like, yeah, I know 2 months is a long time. Don't get me wrong. It is. But when you think about the grand scheme of things, like we've been friends, good friends for well over 3 years now. What's the better track record? The 3+ almost 4 years, or the 2 months? In the grand scheme of things, like it's patience, right?
Yeah,
and so but
good.
I think the patience is reserved for people who do have that track record.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what's unique about it, because sometimes we're holding on to relationships that are damaging to us and really should be cutting off. But it's like, you have been so life-giving to me. So life-giving to me. And the only reason this is eating me up is because you've been so life-giving to me and I'm not getting it, right? But I think it just taught me patience, and it taught me trust and all of that stuff.
That was also good. You touched on 2 really important things. The first thing I'll say is we need to stop making permanent decisions off temporary situations.
Yeah.
Like that was very temporary. And it's not typical for us to both be going through hard seasons at the same time. And I'm so glad that we didn't make any permanent decisions, because in the thick of it, it sucked, but we didn't make any permanent decisions, and look at us now, you know? So I love that you touched on that. Also, I love that you also touched on like being honorable. You didn't say the word honorable, but like that's kind of what came to mind, because like our group of friends down here had absolutely no idea what was happening. I was still hanging out with my girls. You were too, you know, and they had no idea. Like they're going to watch this video and be shocked, to be honest, you know, that like something was going on with us. And I think that's so important, because it limits the voices. Like it's literally just, you're going to God, you're going to your one trusted friend, you're going to your husband. And it's like, okay, there's safety in that. And I think that's so important, because I think that sometimes with women, if I'm honest, our mouths are very dangerous. And because we're so emotional, sometimes we can say something, kind of reminds me of what you said earlier, like you can say something that you can't take back, you know? And it's like just making sure that you're just so strategic about who you talk to in a hard season with a friend, and also you're strategic about what you say to your friend, you know? Because like we could have said so many things in that moment, like how we were feeling, but like timing was really important. Being wise with what we were saying and making sure that everything we were saying was like measured with like grace and love through it all. And that was just a real test of self-control too. Patience and self-control, like making sure you're just not saying anything that comes to your mind. Also, another thing that I love that Amanda did was she was like, you know what? Let's do therapy. You didn't say it like that, but like essentially,
let's reach out to our girl.
Let's reach out to our girl therapists, you know?
Yeah.
And that was really good too, because I learned things in that conversation, you know, and it was so needed for the both of us. And I just feel like that was something that, okay, so with the Be Simone podcast, I had seen some commentary on TikTok about it. And some women were basically saying like, okay, should you go to therapy with your friend? Because that was something that they were saying that they were about to do, Be Simone and Megan and Ashley. And it created this whole discourse on TikTok where people were like, should you go to therapy with your friend? There was one side that was like, yes, you should, because like sometimes women be fighting harder for their men than they do their friendships, which I think is true. But then there was another side where they were like, friendship shouldn't be that hard. If I have to go to therapy with my friend, that's ridiculous. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Amanda.
Yeah, okay. My take, and we haven't even talked about this ahead of time. I was like, don't even tell me what you think, Abe, because I want to hear in live, like when we're rolling, okay?
Yeah.
So my thoughts are,